show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining Turning a Moment into a Movement. My name is Jay Love. The movement was birthed the day my son, Gerard, was wrongfully incarcerated for a crime he didn't do, innocent, and went to prison. And although he's home now, we're still living the after effects of wrongful incarceration. And all of that experience birthed this movement, Turning a Moment into a Movement, where we come every Friday to talk about wrongful convictions and other injustices. An injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So I'm so glad that you're here to join us. I'm excited about this show. Actually, this is our last show for this current season. And we'll be back with a whole new lineup, but I am excited about today because today we have Larry Smith with us. He was wrongfully convicted of a crime he didn't do and served 26 years wrongfully in the Michigan Department of Corrections. And he's here to tell his story. And I'm so honored that he's here. But before we get started, we got to do our little housekeeping. We want you to share. Please share now. Just share with others on your platform. Share the show so others can know or learn about wrongful convictions. People don't understand that a wrongful conviction can happen to anyone at any time. No one is exempt. So it's our duty. It's my duty. I decided when my son was wrongfully convicted that I didn't want anybody else to not know about what's going on. And so I have committed myself to this journey of wrongful convictions. Let's see. Welcome, everyone. I want to introduce the panel who's with us every week. And we'll start there and then we'll keep it moving. Greetings.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great this Friday. I'm going to enjoy my first Friday congregational prayer in a long time. I hadn't been in a mosque with the exceptions of having went in for a few funerals. One for a fellow former prisoner that had returned home that died during this pandemic. Another one, my best friend's mother took and died during this pandemic. And those were the two occasions that I went in the mosque for Friday prayer. Now with the level of the vaccine shots being given and taken, I feel more comfortable. We're going into a very congested environment. I myself had both of my shots, and I encourage others to seriously consider it if you haven't already taken your shot. It helps us all. This is a communal responsibility and concern. We want to keep people healthy. We are here talking about wrongful convictions. We're talking about trying to take and protect people from harm. And so we have to take and be honest about that across the board. My name is Edward Sanders. I go by the name of Baraka. I myself served 43 years in Michigan prison, starting at the age of 17, and I came home just before my 60th birthday. And I recently took and graduated from the School of Social Work in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is a master's program. I'm presently employed at University of Michigan School of Information, and I'm working on projects, research projects, addressing those who are presently incarcerated and those who have experienced incarceration within a certain population. And I'm out advocating. I'm advocating about, those who are confined in our prisons. That's no fault of their own. They are experiencing a pandemic behind bars with very little resources, if any, and with people who are not necessarily taking care of them properly, haven't come up with any solutions of how to take and address this large population of people that are incarcerated during this pandemic. We haven't seen any real policies here in this state, with the exception of the governor's just simply throwing them a bar of soap and saying, hey, pray on it. That's not a solution, and we are not content with that. I've seen people that I knew, that I literally growed up in prison with, take and die during this pandemic, actually days before they were to return back to society. William Garrison was just one of those persons. I literally served time with him down at the Michigan Reformatory, and later we both transferred to Jackson State Prison, and subsequently we also served time together in Marquette Branch Prison together. Garrison Neal was some years younger than me. He also took and suffered from tuberculosis. I was aware of that. I seen the scar on his back, and I knew that he only had one lung, and he was just days away as a former juvenile lifer. He was days away from returning back to society with his family and friends, and instead he died from this pandemic. So these horror stories, this trauma is real. Mm-hmm. We have had people who have been advocating for their innocence that have died before they returned home. I'm glad to be here in this space. I'm glad to be able to take and give a voice to those who are equally and similarly situated as I am, not because they can't do it for themselves, but because they don't have the opportunity. And I'm thankful to be able to have that opportunity. And thank you for having me here on your show, J Love, turning a moment into a movement. Thank you for sharing your personal story, because it's with your sharing your personal story, we're all here in this space.
Thank you, Baraka. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so appreciative of all the work that you're doing. Next, we're gonna have Reverend Tia. Hi, Reverend Tia. Reverend Tia, looks like she froze.
Okay.
Hi. I hear you.
Oh, wait
yep.
a minute.
There you go. You unfroze.
Yeah, you here.
Can you hear now?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay, am I okay now?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm frozen. Next, I'll come back.
Okay. So, while Reverend Tia is out, Attorney Hugo Mack is going to be in with us in a little while. We're still waiting for, I haven't heard from Trisha yet, or our guest panelists. So while it's just me and you, Baraka, we're going to go into the video before we bring on Mr. Larry Smith. But this video is from the rally that myself and others put on last year in front of Frank Murphy Hall of Justice. And it's of Victoria Burton Harris speaking. At this point, she was the candidate for Wayne County prosecutor.
Plead guilty to a quadruple murder he didn't commit. How many of you know that after he was convicted, the real killer, who was already in prison for other crimes, he said, whoa, I don't want him coming in here. I want to tell the truth and let you know that I did that so that you can free that child. It took almost a decade for that child to come home after the current prosecutor knew that he was innocent. That in and of itself is a crime. Like the sister just said, that's a damn shame.
Yes.
That was somebody's child. So I'm standing before you to really get to the heart of the issue. Why do we continue to criminalize innocent people? Because we are not careful with the lives that come through these doors. We quickly rubber stamp warrant requests from officers that we know are not truthful. We don't look at body cam footage that police officers are mandated to turn over. Why aren't we doing the bare minimum to ensure that we are protecting people who have done absolutely nothing wrong and giving justice to those who are harmed in our society? That is a crime. There is a district attorney in San Francisco who recently came out with a new policy that to avoid as much as he could criminalizing innocent people unjustly, his office had a policy now moving forward that they are going to review body cam footage prior to authorizing criminal warrants to ensure as best they can that they have the right person, to ensure as best they can that they have sufficient evidence to stand behind the charges that they authorize, because after all, that is the role of a prosecutor, to be the gatekeeper, to pursue justice, not to pursue convictions. The Conviction Integrity Unit looks at cases of wrongful convictions that have new evidence. How many of you all know that there are so many cases of wrongful convictions that don't have new evidence? How many of you all know that there are so many cases of wrongful convictions that had no evidence? Insufficient evidence to sustain a conviction, insufficient evidence to even warrant the charges to begin with. What happens to those people? Do they get to be reviewed through the Conviction Integrity Unit? Are they allowed to have access to settlement monies once they're brought home, if they're brought home? The answer is no. If we want to be transparent and fair and hold all people accountable who engage in misconduct, you gotta look inside this building. You can't just look at the police, because I can assure you that prosecutorial misconduct is just as bad as police misconduct. Prosecutorial misconduct is quite frankly how we've arrived at so many wrongful convictions. It is not just the police. And we have to acknowledge that when we're being truthful and honest and transparent, that has to come out of our mouths. And anyone that you pay the salary of this building to work as your prosecutor is yours. The person that sits in that seat represents you, the people of the state of Michigan, not just victims and their families, but people who offend and their families. That's fairness. And they owe you explanations for what they're doing in this building when their office, their own employees engage in misconduct. And that's what I implore you all to do when you leave here, is to leave with more knowledge than you came, to leave with a bigger heart than you came. So many of you all are mothers. I know that because I've been with you many times over. I've cried with you. I've wiped your tears and you've wiped mine. I'm a mother, and it troubles me to come to rally after rally, begging people to pay you attention, begging people to help you fight this system, this beast of a system that has managed to swallow our children alive. But we have an opportunity to do something different in 3 days. Something we've never had an opportunity to do before in over a decade. We owe it to this woman right here. We owe it to Janice to help bring her child home, to help bring so many of these other mothers' children home. So on August 4th, if you haven't already filled out your ballot, you can do it today, tomorrow, you can do it on Tuesday.
Baraka. Hello.
Okay.
I cut
Can
the
you hear
video
me?
short because you told me you had a prisoner on the phone.
Oh, yeah, but you could have kept the video going. But here, I want to let him. This is a gentleman that has been given a reversal on his claim of actual innocence, and he's actually down in the Wayne County Jail now, both him and his co-defendant. And I'll let him introduce himself and explain to you some of the particulars of his case. I'm hoping that you'll be able to take and hear him. Maybe I need to cut my headphones off because I got my headphones on and it may not come through the speaker.
Yeah.
So give me a second.
Okay.
Go ahead and talk while I'm doing this.
Okay. So while Baraka is getting his connection together, we're going to add Reverend Tia to the stream. You together, Reverend Tia?
Yes, I switched devices.
Okay. All right. So tell right quick while Baraka is preparing, because I know when they're on the phone, they don't have much time.
Right.
We got.
Well,
He's ready now.
Oh, he's ready. Okay.
He's ready. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Can you hear? You have any questions of him, J Love?
Okay. I barely heard him, Baraka, but I did hear that part of it, and I'm glad that he, keeping the faith and he's holding on. He's still fighting. Baraka, you know a little bit about his case. Can you tell us a little bit?
Okay. We apologize that you couldn't hear him over the telephone. He's in the county jail now as a result of the Supreme Court taking an order and a reversal in his case. And he's saying that despite the Supreme Court taking and agreeing that he didn't receive a fair trial because his juror was tainted. One of the jury members supposedly took and went and got information off of the social network, off of Facebook or something, or social media, and took and shared that information with other jury members and used that information to make a determination of his guilt, and not the evidence that had been presented in trial, and not the evidence that his attorney had the opportunity to take and challenge, to confront, which a defendant has a right. They have a right to confront the witness and the evidence that the prosecutor is presenting against them. If a jury member take upon his or her own self and go look for things to take and validate maybe their inclinations or their leaning, that's something that hasn't been tested in the courtroom. It's not been subjected to the adversarial process, and that happened in this case. And instead of Kim Worthy taking and going and proceeding with a retrial, he says she's been repeatedly taken and appealing the case, which ironically is something that Victoria Burton Harris was pointing out in the video that you took and showed. Despite the fact that there was a gentleman that was in prison that was a known hitman who had took and killed people, he took and acknowledged that the case that the young kid was sent to prison for was a case that he himself had committed. You know, instead of being selfish and trying to hide his behavior, he knew the police was taking and cleaning up records with other people's with crimes that he had committed. And so he stood up, you know, and accepted responsibility for it. But she didn't accept that for a significant number of years until this case became well known in the public and people began to take and rebuke her for that behavior. And she finally relinquished, and they finally released that young man from prison. And but his life has been affected by that, you know. And this gentleman is going through the same thing. He's telling you he's down in the county jail, that even though many of us are now feeling much more safer with the vaccine and everything, that's not the case in jail. That's not the case in prison. When you're confined, you don't have space. They don't have the 6 foot that you can ask for. There's sometimes as many as a half dozen people in 6 feet. In 6 feet of space, you can easily have a minimum of 6 other people. Attorneys will tell you that when they go down to the county jail to try to talk to their clients, and they're in these congested bullpens, and they take and try to ask their clients to speak up. I can't hear you, you know. And sometimes they have to ask the bellot if you can take him out of that bullpen and put him in another bullpen where maybe we can talk. And they maybe not get that time. They may never get that time until they're actually in the courtroom when they expect it to be quiet and not hold a conversation. You know, so he's telling you that the whole floor that he's on in the county jail is on quarantine. Okay. But he have to go through that in order to take and try to assert his innocence. And you know, and the Supreme Court then took and made several rulings in his favor. And he said Kim Worthy is continuously appealing, and he's in the process now of taking and trying to get appeal bond. And I hope that if he do get a bond, I explained to him that there are many organizations out here, from the Detroit Justice Center to Michigan Liberation Organization and others, that are working to take and break this cash bail system. So I told him, don't go out and get no bail bondsman. If they give him a bond, we are taking fines. Some of the movement attorneys out here, those who believe in this cause, that believe in this mission, that want to upset this system and disrupt it, they would take and pay for his bond. So no one make a profit off of his harm that he's experiencing. So he's been made aware of that, not to take a damn dime on it. Get a bond, get notify us, and we'll find an attorney that would get him out.
Right. What's his name again? Edward? What is his name again?
And what's your full name? They want to know your full name again. Darrell Rashad Ewing. Yeah, Darrell Rashad Ewing. When I was in prison with him, I only refer in which we normally do Rashad. That's what I knew him by. Okay. Me and him did time together. I was up in URF with him up in the Upper Peninsula before they writted me back down to go to court for my resentencing. You know, he was among practically 100 other fellow inmates that showed up on the basketball court to wish me well. Okay, so I got all them brothers behind my back that you know, they told me to continue to do what I was doing in prison when I get out. So I know I got jeopardy if I wind back up in that place, because there's too many people there was believing in me to do the right thing. And they have been disappointed with me acquiring a master's degree within the first 3 years of my release back to society.
Right.
So the myth that we take and get together and plot on crime and everything, I don't get that from these guys when they call me. They tell me how proud they are. They tell me how they're doubling down on bettering themselves and that they want to follow this lead. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I'm glad that he called in. Rashad called in and keep us abreast of what's going on. And even though we won't be on next week, but we will do something special. You know, if we have to pop in while we're off to, you know, further give our information about his case. And I mean, we'll make sure that happens.
Yes, and Diane Bonosky in the Voice of Detroit, She been writing articles and following his case as well.
Okay, we can get them both on while we are. So,
Right.
all right, Reverend. Thank you, Reverend Tia. Can you give me a short intro?
Yes, praise God. That's it right there. No, I just want, my name is Tia Littlejohn, Reverend Tia Littlejohn. I'm so blessed, so happy to be a part of this panel. I just want to thank you, J Love. Thank you because you taught us how to seize each moment. And you talk about turning a moment into a movement. And I just believe that as African Americans and as we see all the systemic racism that is going on right now, we are learning to seize each moment, turning them into movements, moving forward together. And that's what it's all about. I still continue working with Flint with their reparations. We just had a meeting yesterday. And I'm working with J Love and on other associations while working on my doctorate in psychology. But my main thing is always motivating, educating, and encouraging others to access the power that is always within them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Attorney Hugo Mack. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Can you give
Good.
us a brief intro to let everyone know what it is that you do?
Well, my name is Hugo Mack. By training and profession, a criminal defense attorney. I often tell people I'm probably the only attorney in the state of Michigan with 2 bar numbers, one horizontal, the other vertical. I use that as a thing of honor, having come through hell, understanding what it's like to pay a debt not owed. So my number is perhaps one of the older ones with the MDOC, 232-506. It's sad to see now so many tens of thousands of people have entered the system, you know, since my time there, and all the more reason to keep on fighting. So for me, it's all about justice. It's all about treating people fairly. As a practitioner for 40 some odd years in and out the penitentiary, I've seen thousands of cases where I know good and well police have lied or fudged on police reports, where perjured testimony has been admitted. Thousands of them. But the problem is, without some backup, it's hard to do anything about it. The problem is when every judge is running for office is running for prosecutor or sheriff, that's a problem. That's a problem. And anytime you've got our own people, and I'm very upfront about my people, I don't sugarcoat nothing. My own people who are reticent to serve on a jury, find a bunch of excuses like everybody else to get out of jury duty. They don't understand. I need them on that jury. I need them to be there to be the voice of reason. I need them to be there to say, well, wait a minute now. Well, let's just take a look at this. Because unless you have an experience with the police that is other than, I hate to say it, lily white, okay? Unless you have that experience, which is not a racial disparagement, it's just a cultural reality. Unless you've got that experience, you will come sitting on a jury thinking that whatever a police officer says is true, whatever it is, simply because that person's a police officer. Even though the judge will tell you as a prospective juror, you cannot judge a police officer by their status. You judge them by the same status you judge any other witness. Well, that's easier said than done, okay? And I know that. I've had jurors admit that to me after verdicts, you know? So my thing is to be here, and I'm proud to be here, but to encourage our people, you must get involved. You can no longer stand on the sidelines and say, that's not my son, that's not my daughter. I raised my kids in the church. Okay, yeah, well, okay, fine. A lot of people's in the church, okay? But it doesn't mean that circumstances do not come up in life, and some decisions are good, some are bad, some are neither good nor bad, but the circumstance beyond those decisions, particularly for people of color, is devastating. So in any event, I'm proud to be here, proud to be in the fight, and we're going to keep on going on until the good Lord says otherwise.
Right. Thank you, Attorney Hugo Mack. Thank you so much. So now we have our guest panelist today, Shawana Vaughn. Hi, Shawana. Thank you for joining us as a panelist. When we come back in August, of course, you're going to be, on the show as a guest. but thank you for joining us. Tell us about yourself and about your organization.
Absolutely. First of all, I would like to say, J Love, thank you. Thank you for all the work you do on behalf of humanity. Thank you. And thank you for 910 in this show and the ability to give voice to voiceless people. So my name is Shawana Vaughn, and I run an organization called Silent Cry here in New York. And I do mass incarceration, foster care, and gun violence. And right now, my plight is mass incarceration and mental health. I have legislation called Post-Traumatic Prison Disorder, Shawana W76337. I have the only mass incarceration mental health bill in the country. New York has it. Joelle Jones is looking at it in Michigan. And currently, I'm very clear that we cannot address criminal justice until we address mental health, because ACEs are really true. Adverse childhood experiences are the things that get us to prison, and we don't address Black trauma in Black neighborhoods. We act like the military, don't ask, don't tell, all the way to prison in the graveyard. Well, you know what? I'm taking all the trauma to do something about it. Silent Cry is out of my own silent tears. I was born in prison. I was vended to the foster care system and sent back to prison. So I'm fighting for legislative change.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you're here with us. Now we're going to bring on our guest. He's been in the waiting for a minute now, but I'm so glad that he's here. Hi, Larry Smith. How are you?
I'm doing great. How's everyone?
Oh, we're
Pleasure to see
great.
you all.
We're happy to see you. Tell us, for those who don't know you, who you are and your about your wrongful conviction, everything. Just wherever you want to start. Just.
My name is Larry Darnell Smith Jr. Butter, and oftentimes I start out by telling people this because when I went to prison, they told me that this number they gave me, 240-888, would be my name from that point forward. And I could forget my name, but not that number. So every time I get an opportunity to scream it out, I let everybody know I'm here. I was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to natural life for a crime I didn't commit. I didn't know the deceased. And to be honest, I don't even know how I even became a suspect, other than a friend of mine was out doing a paper route and drove down the street. And from that point, they asked who be with him, and they said a guy named Butter, and they went downhill. Officer and whoever else just took it upon themselves to just heap it on me. And a jailhouse snitch would go on to say that I confessed to him in the jail concerning the murder. And the officer would say that I confessed to her. You know, both were demonstrous lies that cost me 27 years with my family, my mother, my daughter. But that's the basis of it. And I was fortunate that Valerie Newman of the CIU and the CIU, I was introduced to them through Claudia Whitman of NCAN, right here. And she runs a nonprofit, and she helps people across the country. And that's what was really responsible, because she dug in with attorney Mary Owens, and they fought. Private investigator Scott Lewis, Bill Proctor. It was like a whole people over the years that were put in work. And you have it, my mom and my friends. I mean, and you have it, I'm here. Thank you, CIU.
Yes. The CIU is doing great work. Last year, we know there was a study done that Michigan was number 2 for wrongful convictions. With being number 2 for exonerations. I'm sorry. With that being 20 exonerations in 1 year. And Illinois beat them by 2 exonerations. I think there were like 129 exonerations, period, across the United States last year. To say that we don't have an epidemic of wrongful convictions would be an understatement. There are so many people. Actually, this week we have Ray Gray, who just was released after 48 years. Mr. Gilbert Lee Poole Jr. after 32 years. Yourself in February. Kenneth Nixon. I mean, you know this. I'm preaching to the choir right now. So we have an issue here in Michigan that we need to address. My son came home in January. He only served 2 years, but you guys have served 26. You served 27 years, 32 years, 48 years. Like, there is an issue, and we need to address it, and that's why we're here to educate our community, because if you don't educate people, these things continuously to happen. So we were talking earlier, and you were talking about just your experience with another who I forgot his name, who you were talking with when we were talking earlier about your experience. If you want to, right?
Yeah, we were in Jackson. We were in the Jackson prison together. He was exonerated, I think, in 2017, I believe. He was exonerated prior to the CIU opening up. Okay. And to show you that it's not a color. It's not a color that goes with wrongful conviction. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's a black thing." When actually, the human thing, it's a human rights error. It's great violations of the U.S. Constitution that's taking place. And when a person is placed in that situation of incarceration, a wrongful incarceration, now they have done away with the Constitution. They tell you, "Oh, the Constitution will save you," but in reality, they have what is called an AEDPA. I don't know if you're familiar with the Anti-Effective Death Penalty Act, and that is responsible for single-handedly killing millions across the country, or people dying in prison. Let me say it that way, because this rule gives a procedural bar to somebody who's appealing a conviction. And this right here is very detrimental, especially in Michigan. So say Mr. Ray Gray, he was fortunate. Ray, I salute you. He was fortunate. And that's sad, because that's 48 years. Then for them to come in and say, "Okay, well, we're going to drop the charges that allow you to plead to a no contest," which would allow him to get any type of financial resources. The other gentleman who went home, he didn't have anything. Kenneth Nixon was out there to pick him up along with a clinic. I think it was one of the Western Michigan clinic, but whatever the law clinic that it was, he was fortunate. I wasn't that fortunate to have a law clinic. So for guys that's in prison, that's what they had, their options. The CIU, their options. And now they have me and other exonerees who on the forefront that's screaming out, "Free the innocent, free the medically frail, free the over sentence," because we touching the whole spectrum. This don't just this is an 18 to an 80 year. I had people 16 years old wrongfully convicted to people in their 80s screaming that they was wrongfully convicted with 40 plus years in prison. So it touched the whole spectrum. Families, mothers, daughters, children. You firsthand know how I feel to have a son in there for 2 years. Now compound your 2 years with my mother's 25 making 27, that her son was in this bad place. So that's what I'm here to do. I am the ambassador for the NLA, the National Lifers Association, which I have been a member of for almost 27 years. And I'm not ambassador, so I am an advocate from firsthand experience about being incarcerated at 18 and the trauma that's associated with incarceration in general, let alone a wrongful incarceration. And then the reality is, as I maturated in the environment, I began to see people die of old age who, when I arrived, had zeal and they were young. So now it's another psychological trauma. And your son probably suffered so many things that's associated with that system from that wrongful conviction. And imagine that's in 2 years that he feel this, and you felt that. So for a lot of these guys, Raymond Ward, Lucino Hamilton, Marvin Cotton, Howard, Tommy Hires, these guys that I'm naming, Gary, it's so many of us that was wrongfully convicted that's free now that you see it's a problem. So now these other guys, such as Jerome Hale, Wayne Duff, Jesse Agnew, Mr. Ewing, these guys who are now, these guys are on bail inside of the county jail when we know that COVID-19 is running rampant. And Kim Worthy and her team, and I'm grateful to them because they released me. Understand, they released me. I'm grateful to them for that opportunity. Yet and still, there are still other wrongfully convicted people incarcerated, and they are aware of it. So let me ask you this. Monica Childs, y'all all saw it.
Yeah.
Now we know that if you don't know this woman, she lied against me. She was a detective. She was dishonest. I went to prison. She said that the prosecutor and them and whoever else made a mistake, they didn't do the right thing. By your own, you seen it.
Yeah.
What about the other guys? There's other people in prison. Mr. Brayboy, he's in prison, convicted based on the testimony of Monica Childs. There's other people in prison, and I think that she should be placed on the Giglio Brady list. No, and that there should be no qualified immunity. No qualified immunity. If the state hired you to do a job, they trained you to do a job, and then you begin to do the job, and you put somebody in prison for a crime they didn't commit, then the state and everyone else should be held liable. If I call my mom in here right now, and you talk to my mom, then I think that everyone out there, you should have a show just for mothers. Yourself, bring some more mothers of wrongfully convicted people on there when you come back in, and then you talk about the experience of these mothers, these daughters. So I'm just,
no, you bring up that Brady list because before I started this, I was on Riddle with Randall with Sam Riddle. He was on here, and we discussed for maybe almost 2 years. There was an article by the Detroit News that said there were 71 police officers that lie so much that they can't testify in court. And we've been asking, why they're not, if you can't testify in court, then your name should be on the Brady list. We're going to go to Attorney Hugo Mack about this. Why are you able to still police if you lie so much and you can't testify in court? And part of your job is to be able to testify in court. Attorney Hugo Mack.
Well, you see, first of all, let me tell you how jilted the system is, okay? Now, generally speaking, a person's past cannot be used against them in a court of law when you're testifying. But there's one exception to that. If you have a conviction for theft or dishonesty or some kind of perjury, okay? So in other words, if I get up on a witness stand, I'm testifying, all right? I may have several crimes in my background, but as long as none of them have to do with theft or dishonesty or lying, then you're going to have a very difficult time admitting anything about my past, all right, in terms of crime. So that's for the average citizen. But now the problem is you've had police officers for generations and generations that have repeatedly lied but have been protected. You see, part of the problem is, and I want to talk to all good Democrats out there, okay? All good union supporters out there. Not every union is a good union, okay? So what happens is you have police unions who have negotiated with municipalities or the state, for protections for police in terms of investigating police. Police are not investigated the way you and I are investigated, okay? They've got a right to have counsel with them before Internal Affairs can say one word to them, all right? They've got all manner of protections built in to protect them as to when evidence against them can even be examined properly in a court of law, because it goes through all the hierarchy that they've negotiated, and these municipalities are bent over backwards, all right, to appease the police unions, all right? So anyway, so what happens is it's very difficult, if not impossible, for me to impeach a police officer on a lie when I know he's lying, because there's been no adjudication of lying. There's no list of them being on a list of liars. There's absolutely nothing. And what happens is, the problem I have time and time again going into court, challenging these police officers, prosecutors have say, Your Honor, Mr. Mack is on a fishing expedition. He's asking Officer Johansson about a case from 2 years ago and saying, well, didn't you fudge testimony. Officer Hansen says no. So where am I supposed to go with that? All right. I don't have anything to back me up. So part of the problem is this built-in protection that's there. So that's what's been so unfair. But I just thank God for groups like this where the word is getting out. They need to be on that Brady list. And by the way, if I'm disciplined as an attorney, there's a record of that. All right. You can look me up. You see what I'm saying? I can be had. I can be exposed. The Supreme Court will see you know everything about me. You can't say that about police officers. You can't say that. So how is it that I, as an officer of the court, am subject to the extreme highest scrutiny by you, the public, which I welcome, and somebody who was given the power of life and death by carrying a gun at their hip, their left or right hip, is not subject to that same scrutiny? I don't understand that.
Me either. I have a question while we're talking to you, Attorney Hugo Mack. Well, I don't have a question. One of the viewers had a question. This came on earlier. Dion Riggin L. He asked this question: how do we make the prosecutors held accountable for the crime that they commit?
Well, I mean, part of it is doing away with immunity for them too. Okay, you see, because we in society have made a decision. All right, and let's just be for real about this. We've made a decision that it is more important for us to keep the criminal justice system running, quote unquote, smoothly than it is to hold police and prosecutors accountable for breaking the law. Okay, we made that decision. We made that decision that it costs too damn much money if we had to go back and retry every case that should be retried because a person's constitutional rights are violated. It costs too much money and the system would constipate. We've made a decision. It's more important to keep things flowing, and it's cost of doing business. The man or woman that is wrongfully convicted, that is not going to get justice. And I'm happy to see this brother on here. I'm happy to see, Brother Sanders. I'm happy to see brothers. I'm happy for myself that managed to fight through the system. But there are thousands and thousands of people that I encountered in my 10 years within the Department of Corrections. I know good and damn well either should not be there or they've been there too damn long. Okay, too damn long. Because if the whole purpose of the Department of Corrections, I can't even remember what the motto is there. But anyway, if the whole purpose is to rehabilitate somebody and send them out, after a certain amount of time, you're not rehabilitating them, you're warehousing them. Okay. Right. And what you've got them doing is marking time. You're not doing a damn thing to help them. So in any event, to answer your question, we've got not only to push the qualified immunity in terms of police officers, but these prosecutors themselves, because they hide behind that same shield and they can mess somebody over all they want. They say, well, I'm doing it in the course of my employment, my duties as a prosecutor, and the courts will let them get by with that.
Reverend Tia?
Yeah, I was just going to say, the thing about it is that when you look at even in 2020, when Michigan exonerated 129, and you start to put the years together, and I read that it was what 1,737 years.
Wow.
1,737 years. How many lifetimes is that?
Right.
And
their families. And their families.
Yes. Yes. And so, I think when we do come back, starting to look at what bills are there that we need to back, if they're not in Michigan, which ones do we need to put in place and take some steps forward, because enough is enough.
Mm-hmm.
We are no longer asking. Now we're at the point, just let my people go. I'm not stuttering like Aaron. I'm coming like Moses. Let the people go. Let them all go. And because of the mindset that is behind this, the mindset that is within this system, because of that mindset, that consciousness, I cannot trust that things will be done fairly. whether the person is wearing a badge or whether they're sitting in the courthouse. I'm looking at the mindset, and the mindset, I believe what the brother said. It's not just black or white. No. Yes, there's systemic racism, but some of our African American people are placing people behind bars for life. And they are taking away their lives, and they don't care as long as it does not affect their image. And what we're fighting against really are people's egos. Because then you got to go back and say, oh my goodness, I sent all these people to prison and I was wrong. Now what?
Mm-hmm.
Now what?
Shawana,
Yes, ma'am.
you have something to say?
I absolutely. First of all, welcome home. But I was listening, and we have to do away with qualified immunity. That's absolutely on the front line. And I heard you talk about the toll of prison on your mental health, and especially for somebody who's innocent. And I definitely understand your plight. I wasn't innocent, but my mental health still took a toll. And that's why that's one of the things at the forefront, including in Michigan, for me. And so I definitely concur with the things that you've said, but definitely more legislation has to be put forward.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm currently teaching 4 prisons to write legislation. And I think as organizations and people, we should collectively be writing legislation.
Exactly. Baraka?
Yes, and I thank all your guests, those that are here on the panel, as well as those who are listening in the audience and sending in comments and so forth. And Shavana, is I'm saying your name, Shawana?
Yeah.
I really appreciate what you are advocating for. You could have actually stole my homework in school. I literally made this argument while I was there at the University of Michigan, and I would love to take and try to arrange for you to talk to some of the student bodies so they can give you an invite. So if you and I connect after the program, I would like to take get your information. But and I thank everybody for the comments and everything. I thank Larry for coming on here as a person who has been exonerated, and hopefully other exonerees will take and follow him and use their own voice. Don't allow us to take and claim your story. It's your story. Tell it yourself. Like Reverend Tia took and made mention. Find your own voice, whether you're Moses or Aaron. Use your own voice. Have your own courage. Pick up that staff. If you have to throw it down, hey, that's okay too. But use your own voice. What I would like to say, following up on what has been said here by Attorney Hugo, Shawana, and others about immunity. What I would ask Larry and other individuals who have recently been exonerated, I would ask you guys to go to the ACLU and other organizations and ask them to take and bring a class action lawsuit, to take and bring lawsuits against the municipalities and cities that have entered into contracts with police unions that have given them immunity. Your basis of that lawsuit is that they don't have the authority to do that. They do not have the authority to do that because they entered into a contract with the police unions that is a conflict of interest to the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution takes and holds that everyone has the right of liberty. Okay? Everyone has the right of due process. And to give somebody the immunity is to say that that can be secondary to this agreement that they have. And even more important than that, there's a clause in the United States Constitution
Larry, can you unmute yourself?
You say I'm muted?
You're not anymore.
All right.
Do you have something to say behind what Edward? And also, you know, I see that your daughter is on here, and you spoke about the mothers and the children, and just a little bit on, you know, her and how this wrongful conviction just really had took a toll on you, your family, your daughter. You know, people don't understand that. When I was, you know, when we were going around talking, even myself, about wrongful convictions, it's hard for people to have empathy because they're so sucked in narrative. So if you can just speak on that a little bit.
Yes. When I was incarcerated, my daughter was like 1.5 years old. And then when I came out, my daughter was a grown woman, and I had a grandchild that was my daughter's age, and I had 2 older grandchildren, you know, and just the experience of not being able to be in her life to watch her develop, and being incarcerated and watching her develop, and just being at distance. my mom through the process of my father passing away, my grandmother's passing away, and being alone to go through this process. So it has been a very horrible and torturous experience where that's concerned. It's just a real live horror story. You know, you go from one day delivering oxygen tanks to the next day serving hard time. And I just could only imagine the real psychological effects that it had on my mom. You know, my mom, she sent me to the police station. She told me that they was looking for me. You know, within what they said was a couple of hours of this crime happened. So can you imagine her sending her child to a place where they're supposed to be to protect us and for some questions, and I never returned for 27 years? She sent the attorney to the police station the following day. They sent the attorney away and said I couldn't see a lawyer. So those things, her sending me down there, I can only imagine, as I say, how I played on her psyche for all these years. You know, and my daughter. Mm-hmm. It's just not a good thing. You know, and we getting to know one another, which is not really an easy task, because you got to figure, after 27 years, I'm trying to tell her what I think is best. And she's telling me how she's been living life out here. And she know how to use a computer and I don't. So that trump a lot of the things that I'm thinking. Right. But overall, it's a great, you know, to be home to my daughter, to my grandchildren, to my mother, and to have this opportunity. And as you said, Mr. Edward, I will talk to my attorney, Mr. Jared Adams. As you know, he's an exoneree, and I will speak with him concerning that. Just as soon as we get off, I'll give him a text message. You know, because I believe that absolute immunity should be killed. Qualified immunity should be killed. Anything that can be used as a tool to cause a person a wrongful conviction should be killed, eradicated, and the sentences shouldn't stand. It's too many of us. It's too many of us.
Right. Attorney Hugo Mack, there's a question. We're going to get to the rally. Go ahead.
The rally?
Yeah.
I just wanted to tell everybody the rally on June 4th. I apologize. I should have been said something. We'll be down there from 9 to 2 downtown, 1441. We there, St. Antoine. Please come out. Please come up and show, because it's people who need you, parents who need you. If any support that we can have, anybody will show up, we would appreciate it. And that's it. I apologize. Thank you.
No, you're fine. You good. We was gonna get to that, but I'm glad you brought it up. Attorney Hugo Mack, there's a question for you. Why can't we hold the judges and prosecutors to their oath of upholding the Constitution?
Well, the simple answer to that is we can. It's called an election. The complex answer to that is it's next to impossible, because once a person is elected, the way the system works, it is next to impossible to get them out of office unless there's some kind of a corruption, sex scandal, embezzlement, something like that. You see, let me just tell you something. You know my story. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons I ran for Washington County prosecutor this last cycle is because people have got to stand up and challenge the status quo. People are afraid that, say I ain't got the money, they're going to talk about me, they're going to do me wrong, they're going to railroad me, ain't got a chance. One of the things my candidacy proved is that I refuse to go by what you say about me. I go by what God says about me. So part of the problem is with holding judges. Now, in Michigan, there is the Judicial Tenure Commission, okay? And a prosecutor is an attorney like any other attorney. There's the Attorney Grievance Commission, the Attorney Discipline Board, where you can bring allegations against an attorney. But in terms of a prosecutor, like I said, we talked about before, that immunity thing, if you can know darn well that a prosecutor submitted perjured testimony, all right? But your recourse is to go in court, because when you go to the Grievance Commission about that, they're going to say, well, your recourse is in the court system, all right? It is not with us, because this prosecutor was within the scope of their employment, within the scope of their duty. So disciplinary action against a prosecutor with the Attorney Grievance Commission is going to be next to impossible. except for, like, I think was it Eric Smith or one of those prosecutors in maybe Macomb County. He was stealing money or something like that and got caught up in that and was taken out of office. But other than that, it's next to impossible to deal with a prosecutor under the current law. A judge is the same way. When you go to the Judicial Tenure Commission, unless you've got a judge making racially disparaging statements or sexist statements, some kind of sexual harassment, it is next to impossible to hold those people accountable for their conduct. And I'm gonna say this one other thing. The reason it's next to impossible to hold the judge for their conduct in the appellate system is because those judges want to perpetuate the system, all right? They're elected to office also, and there's a kinship there. These judges are very loath to overturn another judge. It takes a strong-willed person of ethic to say, you know what? Judge Smith in Third Circuit Court in Wayne County was flat out wrong. Their ruling was flat out wrong, was prejudiced, and it was biased. Unfortunately, you don't have a lot of people in the system that are willing to do that at the Court of Appeals. Supreme Court has gotten a little bit better over the last 3 or 4 years, but they simply will not do it. Poor people don't vote. They don't have money. They don't have resources, and that's how they view them. These are a throwaway group of people that can't do a damn thing to hurt us, so we don't have no reason to do anything to uphold the law with them.
Exactly. When Gerard was going to court, my son, I noticed that most of the jury makeup was people who lived outside of the city. Mm-hmm. And when I was thinking about what kind of direct action I wanted to take, the first thought that came in my mind is I need to educate the people who are coming to court that live outside the community, outside the city, or what wrongful convictions are. Because we talked about, weeks before about confirmative biases and different biases. And we get a lot of our programming from television, the first 48 and CSI and things like that. And so when people, watch these things, they think that, they bring that to court. And people pretty much are pre-programmed into what their decisions going to be. So we have to educate. So that's why we're here every Friday, because we need to not only educate each other, we have to educate those outside our communities, the reasons behind wrongful convictions, the reasons, behind, qualified immunity, because the narrative now, and we talked about this a little bit last week, because we want reform. They're talking about qualified immunity and how police officers now don't want to work unless they have it and, things like that. But meanwhile, it's okay to use that immunity to lock up someone innocent, or use that immunity when you're beating up some brutality and stuff like that. So you want to have something to keep you covered. But what about the innocent people? What about the people who are, are getting things, I'm losing my words, but you know what I mean, when they make cases, lie on people, throw evidence on people, all kinds of corrupt things that they do. What about them? Where is their cover? So reform is necessary, and it's going to take all of us working together to make sure it happens. It's not just a one-sided thing, like Larry said earlier, and Tia and Edward. It's not just black and white, it's everybody, because it's affecting us all. If we look at the data of how much money is, that is costing us. So it might not affect you personally. It may not be your family member, but you're paying out your pocket. You're paying out your pocket. And even with, these lawsuits, who's paying it? We are, as the citizens. We're paying it. Go ahead, Edward.
If I can share with you, imagine two people serving time for one murder. and neither the guys are related to the other. Neither of them know that the other is serving the time for the same murder that they are serving. We have absurd, bizarre cases like that right here in Michigan. Okay. I was in prison with a person at the Mile Correctional Facility. There was this young Hispanic kid. He had been tried and convicted when he was about maybe 15 years old or younger. He took and confessed it to having committed. He ran around the neighborhood and told everybody he killed this guy. And they took and waived him from the juvenile system into the adult system and convicted him for murder. While he was serving time, the police went out and arrested 2 adults and charged them with the exact crime. And when the adults, they knew that the kid had already been convicted and sentenced for the crime that they committed. They knew it, and they threw it up as a defense. They was like, hey, you already convicted a kid for this crime. And the prosecutors took, and imagine this, they say, we know, but the kid only confessed it. He only said he done it, but he really didn't do it. You done it. They literally took the statement that the prosecutor said and gave it to the kid. The kid went and got an attorney, and the attorney then took and argued his case. And this was a case out of Macomb County. Okay, this was a case out of Macomb County. And his case went all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court. They sent it back down for an evidentiary hearing, but the prosecutor just sit on the case. And the kid was so anxious to take and try to get out, he told his attorney, forget about the evidentiary hearing. Just get me out. Just get me out. He wanted to go back home to not to Dominican, but Puerto Rico with his family. He said, just get me out and I'll leave the country. Okay, they knew this kid didn't commit this crime, and the prosecutor admitted to it, but that was just one case. There are other bizarre cases like that, but we all have played a part in this. The kind of culture that we have allowed to be created, that allow police to take and bring up Trump charges, all of us are responsible for it. We tell the person that's accused of a sexual offense, we joke and make remarks about them, sending them to prison so that they can be raped. So we accept that. We say that if you committed a sexual offense, then you should be sent to prison, and the guys there in prison should take and have their way with you. This is a mentality and an accepted position of many Americans. So we tell the police, don't be concerned about the evidence. If somebody accused this guy, throw him or her in the joint, and we see people come out every day. And sometimes women are even accused of taking and doing this. There was one woman recently here in Michigan that had it was a very bizarre case. She had put several people in prison for allegedly raping her. The only way it came to the light of the public is that she got convicted for unrelated crimes. She was taking and claiming that she was a victim of cancer, and she had been collecting money for the cancer and everything. And so they began to take an investigator on that and come to find out that she was a perjurer. She was a person that had been lying, and she had then put several people in prison. And it was only because of unrelated situations she got herself in that they became aware of this problem that she had in taking and making accusations against people. Okay, but you had several people that was literally in prison serving time for allegedly raping this woman. She gave all kind of details and everything that supposedly didn't happen to her, and remind you, rape is the only crime in the United States that don't require any kind of evidence. It's the only kind of crime that you can simply upon a person's word. So it's very important that we have credible evidence in that case. We don't want to take and not believe women. We don't want to take and not believe children. We don't want to take and not believe men. We got a guy in prison that took and told them that the police raped him. They ignored him and swept it under the rug for 12 years. And now they come to find out the police was a serial raper. He was running around raping black men for years, and they ignored it. Okay, this is something you shared with me in the messenger. So this is very important, what we're talking about. These are, we helped created this environment. We have to change our attitude. And until we change our attitude, we can't take and make this system go away. We helped created it. You hear Kim Worthy. She was read on national television, said that she wanted to push back against another prosecutor here in Washtenaw County, saying that he instructed the police here in Washtenaw County not to use pretext to stop people when they're driving as an excuse to shake them down, to look in their cars and go into their private matters. And she said, no, I got to push back on that, because sometimes we find dead bodies in cars. You can get 1,000 defense attorneys and ask them, how many clients have you had that was found with a dead body in the car? I mean, Hugo Mack, did you have such a client? Have you had a client?
Never.
Okay. Any other attorney on here that had a client? I met one guy in 43 years that I was in prison with, and I still know his name. I know his name, so don't challenge me. I met one guy in 43 years, and he literally was taking a body from a drug house. The guy OD'd or something in the drug house. That's not an excuse for the illegal stop and seizure of thousands of other people.
Right.
Okay? And you come up with this bizarre explanation and excuse. And that's what I'm saying. The reason that she can take and so boldly take and say that on television. She was in a group of other prosecutors. All of them was on television, on Channel 2, Fox News, and they was being interviewed, all these prosecutors from the local prosecutors' offices, and she said that right there on public television. So you hear the police listening to that. Oh, she cool with us still stopping people without probable cause, and because we might find a dead body in the car. Okay, so she's literally telling them continue. Mm-hmm. The police themselves have to quit allowing themselves to be used, because when things go bad, that same prosecutor gonna throw your ass up under the bus. Gonna throw your ass up under the bus. Okay, don't do it. You know what the Constitution say about due process, about probable cause. You can be a high school student. You can be an elementary school student, and you know what probable cause is. You don't need to be an attorney to know what probable cause is. Don't do it. If you don't have probable cause to stop somebody, quit it. Quit it. Because most of the time when it occurs, you're killing people. That's what happened to the young man whose death, the anniversary of death, we was protesting yesterday. That's what brought the attention of his death around the world. Quit it.
Yeah. Attorney Hugo Mack.
That's true, and only when we get to the point of making the public understand. See, it's got to start with the public. It really does, it really does. And it's got to start with attorneys that are brave enough to stand up in court and brave enough to run these offices, and brave enough to say things have got to change, okay? Because and part of the problem, and I'm more direct with my people than most people. We have to stop being so complacent. We gotta stop saying, well, it's not me. Like I said, I'm good. And by the way, let me say this. In terms of Black people and police, you see, I'm not one of those people who think that the police should not be in a Black community. I think Black people, above all other people, except maybe Native Americans, have got a right to police protection. So it's not an issue of the police being in the community. It's an issue of the military being in the police. See, that's the problem right there. That's the problem, okay? So we have a right to have safe streets. We pay taxes inordinately more than any other group in this country, except for maybe Native Americans, all right? So if there's anybody that's got a right to get on that phone and say somebody's in my backyard and they're suspicious, it's Reverend Tia Littlejohn, okay? If anybody got a right to say that, okay? If anybody got a right to say his brother Sanders and this sister here in New York and this brother, this exoneree, and you, J Love, we have a right to say that. So my message to my people is quit apologizing for every damn thing. Quit make it seem like you asking for something that you letting people make you think that they're giving you something. You don't deserve it. You know, we tired of you with your handout. Stop that BS. It pisses me off. And I lecture on that stuff all the time. So what I'm saying is we have got to start standing up and saying, we're not going to take no more police brutality. We're going to march and we're going to push legislation. We're going to be a major irritant from now on. And I'm going to tell you this, I'm encouraged. You know, they got Tim Scott, who was not my favorite person at all, but at least there is some movement on the George Floyd bill, some. We may not get the qualified immunity that we want, but there's a lot of good things still that we can get and not give up on qualified immunity, because at this moment in time, I'm gonna tell you, brothers and sisters, we need some victories under our belt. We do. We need some victories under our belts, you know. So you know, I'm gonna keep on pushing the fight, and I'm asking y'all to stand here with me, you know.
Yes. I want to read this from Paula in the comments. I thought this was a great idea. Paula Kinzu, I'm not sure I'm saying her name right, but she said, I have an idea that we need to pass a law that prosecutors and judges must all pay into a wrongful conviction fund, the same way physicians must pay a hospital for malpractice insurance. Force prosecutors and judges to pay into the wrongful conviction fund. It would take the burden off the state and the judges, and judges and prosecutors will have skin in the game. Let's do this. I like that idea. I like that idea, because how do you hold people accountable when there's no accountability?
Yeah, I really like that too, J Love, because it's showing that we're holding you accountable right now, and we're making you pay right now. We're making you pay in advance, because we already know there's implicit biases that's going on. And if we don't affect people in their pockets, in the system, in its pocket, that's the only way you can create change. And that's why we got to keep doing the numbers, put the numbers out there. When we have so many men incarcerated, so many women incarcerated, these are citizens of the United States. And this is where we got to get to. We have to get to the idea that these are citizens of the United States, valuable citizens that could be working, that could be creating, that could be doing mighty things in this world and making United States a better place. But because we continue to be divided, we don't see the whole picture. The whole picture is that wrongful incarceration and all of these issues affect us totally as a nation.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
Shawana, did you want to say something?
I like what you said, Reverend, but the reality is, let me tell you what, we are stuck in slavery, and by any other name would be wrong. Because at 17, when I went to prison, I worked every job imaginable. I made hair dye, lens crafters, glasses, Ashley furniture headboards, and every other thing you could possibly. And you know what? The reality was, at 35, when I had a heart attack and went to go apply for disability, do you know they said I worked enough in my lifetime? I said, how? I was in prison at 17. Do you know my EDD report said? I worked at Ashley Furniture Headboard. I worked at Clairol Hair Dye. I had all these jobs making all this money. I said, that couldn't be me. Social Security said, no, this is you.
That's slavery.
One of the real reasons we can't make effective change is because the Dow Jones here in New York is depending on industrial slavery complex. It's cheaper labor than the Philippines. So how do we combat that? Even the potatoes from McDonald's are from prisons.
And this is the knowledge that we got to put out. See, the problem is that people will go to prison, They work all these jobs that we don't even know. People don't know that Clairol is behind it. We don't have a list going. We got people on social media and they circulate all this other material. They got all these other things going around. They got all the eyelashes and everything, and they're doing all of this extraness that has nothing to do with the whole picture of freedom. And
Absolutely.
so this is when we gotta go. I want to get out of slavery, but how do we get there? We gotta go ahead, list every single corporation. We need to have a site that has.
Well, I have a list and I'm gonna email it to you.
Email it to me because I'm gonna put it out there. We gotta have every corporation, and we have to boycott every one of them.
The top
Starbucks coffee beans are made in prison. All those are on car parts.
I already
made
been
in prison.
them.
Absolutely.
Let's get it. Yeah, let's get it. Let's get it.
See, can I say something, J Love?
Yeah, go ahead.
See, part of the problem is, I agree everything these sisters are saying, but see, part of the problem is you've got some of these corporating for like McDonald's, for example, okay? Now, McDonald's has been one of the main objectors to raising minimum wage, okay? McDonald's has been one of the main objectors, all right? And they support Republicans and wayward Democrats, I might add, who don't agree with raising a minimum wage, all right? But the problem is McDonald's will support something like a Tom Joyner Foundation, a black DJ, all right? Or I saw a commercial, I can't remember what it was for, where they were saying, well, we support this black group or black initiative, whatever. And that corporation is one that has never, ever, ever supported the interests of black people in terms of minimum wage or fair housing legislation. So part of the problem we have is Ford Motor Company, for example, okay? I mean, Henry Ford was an outright racist, whether you know it or not, okay? An outright racist. The reason we have Inkster right now is because he did not want those black workers working in that automobile plant, that assembly line, too close to them white people. So they started having it was a village back then of Inkster. That's where all them black people came from. All right. So what I'm telling you is this. But yet you see Ford Motor Company say, you know, we're supporting the historically black college, university, what have you. So there's a very clever game that's being played right now with corporations that don't have black people interest in mind. But you got like a Tom Joyner or a Steve Harvey, somebody like that. They'll get on the bandwagon, throw them a couple $1,000 and then say, well, see, we are with the people. So I agree with what you're saying, but it's a very subtle game they're playing with us. And, you know, we the ones end up on the short end of the stick 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, but it's lack of knowledge.
Right.
Lack of knowledge.
Right.
You know, we still dealing with lack of knowledge. And
Right.
so, you know, like I said, Malcolm X, before he had died, they asked him, what would you do if you had to do things over again? He said, what would you do? He said, well, before I organize, I would educate. Before I organize, I educate. And we need to educate. And the problem is we don't educate enough about, you know, because how many black people are eating McDonald's? Right. We could change, but we have to believe that we can change it. We have to change the narrative.
That's right. That's right.
Yes, you're right, Reverend Tia. So, Larry, do you have anything that this is what we usually do before we leave? I ask everyone if they have anything they want to leave us with. Do you have anything you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I got all kinds of stuff I want to leave y'all with. But I want to read one of the viewers here. He said that, hello, I am Cedar Ewing, and I am the organizer along with Thelonious Cersei. The purpose of this rally on June 4th is to shed light on the corruption that's taking place in the city of Detroit. Also to speak for the voiceless that are faced with injustice. We want to make our voices be heard so that the people can bear witness to what's taking place within the prosecutor's office, Frank Murphy Hall of Justice, and the Detroit Homicide Section. And I think that's what we all saying, that we want to have some type of accountability from those people, from situations and occurrences such as myself and these guys and the other exonerees. And I appreciate y'all having me here, and that I want everybody to know that there are other wrongfully convicted people in prison. I know many by name. I call them out all the time. Mr. Baraka, he knows many. Sister J Love, Sister Shawana, hey, thank you, because you do a lot of great work for prisoners. I want you to know, I know about it. I've heard, I was there. I read some things. Thank you. Hugo Mack, it was some guys from Ypsilanti hoping that you got in there. The VC brothers, they was hoping, because those guys wrongfully convicted. And I look forward to them guys being released so I can pick my friends up from the prison. And every opportunity I get a chance, I will continue to say, free the innocent, the medically frail, and the over sentenced. Thank you.
That's right.
Yes, and then also for the ones who were never, that's wrongfully incarcerated, but took plea deals, that would never be able to prove their innocence, that lost their rights to, you know, to give their story. So that's why we come here every Friday. And, you know, I want everyone to know in the comments as well. We come here every Friday to tell our own stories. You know, if you don't tell your story, somebody's going to tell your story the way they want it to be told.
That's right.
In order to have your power, to take your power back, you have to tell your story. For me, I had to figure out how to tell my story, you know, and when I met Mr. Sam Ritter, he said to me that the thing that just brought the spark into me was, do you want to be a victim or an advocate? Because nobody listens to victims. Everybody got something going on. And that day, when he said that to me, it changed my whole perspective. You know, how can I not tell the story? This is my kid, you know, and that's why on the screen scrolling at the bottom is, you know, the Justice for Gerard, where you can go and sign a petition and find out more about his story. You know, some of the people who are wrongfully convicted will never be exonerated, will never have new evidence, will never, you know, be able to collect. They have to start their lives all over again with that felony, and, you know, hopefully, or felonies. So, you know, hopefully they'll get an opportunity with the, you know, new bill, Clean Slate Act to, you know, eliminate that off their records. So this is a big thing, and we have to come together and every day fight about it, every day, regardless, you know, what other people think, because I know people get tired of me talking about it, but I'm not gonna stop.
Thank
you.
And I'm one of those persons that will probably never be given an opportunity to prove my innocence. I don't spend a lot of time taking an argument that I am innocent, though I am. I was convicted for first-degree murder, allegedly telling another youth to take and kill someone. I never did that. I didn't take entail on that youth when the police inquired, and they knew damn well I hadn't took and committed the crime because they said as much. They said, we know who done the killing, and they said, we don't know who done it, but we know that you know who did. And they asked for my cooperation. When I refused to give it to them, they promised to put me in prison for a long time, and they've done that. Okay. I take and prove my innocence by what I do since I've been home. Okay. What I have accomplished since I've been home, and I'm not through. You know, I'm not through, because I'm constantly seeing in everything I do that I was innocent then and I'm innocent now. And that's important to me. Ironically, the person that became my attorney when I came home is the same woman that's the head of the integrity unit in Wayne County. Valerie Newman, my appellate attorney, and she left the state appellate defender's office to take over the integrity unit. And as a result, I lost the damn bulldog. But my concern is to take and live my life. I take and commend those who are taking an argument, who are standing up. It's not easy. It's not easy. When I was in prison, I took law classes. I had a young lady from out of Chicago. Her father was a sitting judge, and she was a former clerk. She was a former federal judge clerk. and she took and acknowledged to me. She said that when you guys file your litigation, on your own behalf in the courthouses, she said the court clerks throw your litigation away. They throw y'all motions and your briefs, your writs and things in the court garbage can. And I asked her, why would they do that? She said they got an argument that all you guys got to do is go to prison and you can practice law, and they got to go to law school. And I'm like, we'll trade places with them any day. So here you got people that are just envying others because they are fighting for their liberty. This is the kind of system we got. This is the kind of system we got. This young lady, her father was a city judge. She was a former federal judge clerk. I'm a paralegal. I'm taking classes in college for paralegal studies. And this is what she tells me why I'm taking and trying to learn to take and litigate my own case. So she let me know that you ain't gonna only take and have a challenge with the prosecutors answering your stuff, because they may not never get it. The judge may not never get it, because when you file it, they throw that stuff in the garbage can often. And I done been through that with guys who have missed their deadline for their federal habeas corpus, because the courts insist that they never received it before the deadline. They said, we never got a copy of that. And the court clerks that's you busy sending all this information through is sitting there knowing that he or she is the one that's responsible for creating the havoc in the courthouse. And the judges know it sometimes, and they just ignore it.
Wow. Shawana, what would you like to leave us with?
Well, I would definitely like to leave you with, I need your support in Michigan to pass post-traumatic prison disorder. So please contact Jewel Jones and Sylvia Santana. And I will see you guys on the 4th in Michigan at the rally. But I would really like to leave you with humanity. What will you do for humanity? That is the premise of what I wake up for every day. Only what you do for humanity will stand.
Yes. Reverend Tia.
Oh, I just think it's a blessing to be here. And I just want to thank all of those who have been a part of the system, who have received the oppression from the system, and who have still had enough fight in them to continue on. I think that if we really break it down when it comes to releasing those who are innocent and the wrongfully convicted, we have to look at definitely medically fragile and definitely those who are not even able to receive the psychological services that they state that they give them in prison, that we know that they don't. And so they never get that care. And so the prison cannot provide psychological services. They cannot provide mental health. There's just not enough workers for it. They don't even care. They don't get the medication. And we know that happens with those who are fragile, medically fragile. So I just send everybody off today with blessing. And just know that your life is not in vain. Your fight is not in vain. And that you are leaving a legacy right now and helping to build up others along the way in this journey. And I just want to say thank you. Much gratitude to you.
Thank you. So before we go, I just want everyone to know that, our live Turning a Moment into a Movement will also be on your favorite podcast platform. We are on Anchor, Breaker, Google, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and iHeart. So subscribe to those platforms. So if you can share with others to subscribe, subscribe to our platforms on YouTube as well. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I know this show ran a little late today, but it was our last one for this season. And I appreciate Larry for you coming on. I appreciate you. I'll see you on Monday, Sharana. I mean, next Friday. Sharana, thank you. I can't wait. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I first met you here in Michigan at Gus Harrison Correctional Facility at the protest. Thank you. Trisha couldn't be with us today,
Thank y'all.
but we sending her love. Allie
Absolutely.
is on vacation, so we sending her love as well. I want to let you guys know it is our duty to fight for our freedoms. It is our duty to win. We must love, respect, and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Thank you, guys. We'll see you in August. We might have some little special events going on, me and Edward, and have some little things going on. But thank you, guys. Have a great weekend. We're sending love and see everybody at the rally.
Could you send me Victoria's video so I can put it on my Facebook page?
Yes.
I stepped on it.
Yes, I will.
And you guys look at that video that she was talking in.
Yeah.
Hey,
All right, Larry.
Hey,
Much
thank you.
respect, Larry. Much respect, man.
Hey, thank you. Much respect, y'all. I didn't know you came in here. I was in Adrian when y'all was out there picketing. I was inside the facility with COVID. I appreciate that. I was there.
Oh, wow. You was at Gus Harrison? Yeah.
I came home from, I read it 3. Yes, you were. I heard you. The facility.
Oh, yeah.
They put one of the guys who helped put together, the prisoner, they put him in a hole and transferred him because y'all was out there. I appreciate y'all so much. Thank you.
Donald Ferguson called out there. I talked to some of y'all on the telephone.
Oh, yeah, you sure did. All right, bye, everybody. We're checking out.